Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is an original story based on the classic tabletop RPG from TSR, Wizards of the Coast, and now Hasbro, respectively. But what it's really based on is the premise that at some point, Marvel Studios was probably going to scrape together enough of their sword and sorcery type characters to do a fantasy movie in that general style, thus cornering another whole segment of the box office. So whoever currently owned the rights to Dungeons & Dragons or some similarly marketable IP brand should probably hurry the fuck up and just make Guardians of the Galaxy but swords themselves first, and then I guess someone pointed out that's what Critical Role has been doing for like a decade, so they just went, oh, well, still do basically that anyway, but with less cursing so we can put it in theaters.
Now, fuck! Are you kidding me? Fucking doors!
Why does this happen every time we go out drinking?
And yeah, depending on which of the two you're more immediately familiar with, that's pretty much exactly what you got here in Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, as far as points of reference go. Think either family-friendly Vox Machina or Guardians of the Galaxy but horses and castles instead of spaceships. Chris Pine is a bard who does all the wisecracking, Michelle Rodriguez is a barbarian who does so little wisecracking that the lack of wisecracking kind of becomes her wisecracking. Justice Smith is Justice Smith, but he is a wizard this time.
Why am I here?
Good job, son. Build your people skills. Yeah, thanks, Dad.
Stop talking! You're a hallucination!
You're a hallucination.
Sophia Lillis is a tiefling druid, and Hugh Grant looks like he's having a lot of fun playing a smarmy bastard who's here to chew scenery and get paid, and he already got paid. Okay, technically he's playing a former associate of the titular team of thieves who got himself appointed Lord of Neverwinter while the others were in prison after their last failed job, and now he's keeping Chris Pine's daughter and some special magic treasure locked in the castle while he's scheming with the Red Wizards to do a bad thing. So the freshly escaped good but not that good guys have to party up and go to a dungeon diving for different treasure needed to stop this. And look folks, one of the things that took me forever to get about Dungeons & Dragons in the first place is that conceptually all the stuff is extremely familiar and cobbled together from existing fantasy media and mythology ephemera, so players can live out their own thing within the familiarity. That's the point. You know, Honor Among Thieves being almost excessively Fantasy Quest 101, but with this hopefully entertaining bunch of people, is pretty much being as true to the spirit of the thing as possible. I mean, at least in my opinion, without like going super meta and cutting away to people playing the campaign or something, obviously, though I would not be surprised given how episodic it is if that wasn't in a version of the script at one point. And that's not to say we're in self-aware parody territory here. It's about as straightforward and serious about the material itself as the material itself probably allows in terms of following the rules, and while it's not an adaptation of any one specific aspect of the mythology, it's saturated with lore and Easter eggs if that's your bag of holding. It's just as clear that the writers and filmmakers understood that everything about this is prefab, modular, and meant to skip to the parts where you can directly engage, and they take full advantage of it. Right down to starting with a story that feels like the second or even third sequel in a running series where most of the characters already know each other and know each other's backstories, and we're starting off in media res with half of it already completed so we can get caught up along the way and things get explained by context, you know, when they have to, or not at all because it's 2023, and if you don't know like what a fucking dragon is or what they do, why are you watching a movie with "and dragons" in the fucking title in March? You know, it keeps things lively and moving at a brisk enough pace. I mean, brisk enough that you don't have time to notice that, well, it looks pretty handsome, and for the most part it's actually kind of directed somewhat pedestrian, not poorly, but without a lot of flair and a lot of shot, reverse shot, everything in center frame business. I did like the smattering of bits where they get to play with the quirks specific to the genre and game origin, like the nuances of how magic works, the surprising amount of time spent making maps and plans and then making new maps and plans when the originals don't work. And I'm pretty sure that the pair of big group brawl scenes are designed to be framed by frame through by fans to see which meaningful attacks are being used in which context. I think I caught which was the most big, obvious, important one in the finale, so yay me. I really enjoyed the extended gag of Sean Page from Bridgerton showing up as a paladin who, because paladin, is kind of the only character who isn't doing any jokes or sarcasm and is taking everything completely seriously, so he's also a better fighter, a better seeker, more upstanding, more righteous, more knowledgeable, just fucking better at everything than anyone else, just rolled full stats across the board, so of course he's the most awesome, overpowered character, and he can't stick around for the whole quest because then there wouldn't be a quest, and because there'd be no quest, that's as boring as a guy who has no jokes or flaws. That's clever. It's hardly a home run, like I said, it's kind of by the numbers direction-wise. I'm glad it doesn't try to go too big or do everything at once, but there's a distinct point where you can feel that we've already started thinking franchise, so start teasing but also pulling back, which mixed results like you'd expect. On the plus side, the cast chemistry really works. Michelle Rodriguez hasn't looked this engaged in a role in years, and I'm glad for anything that keeps Chris Pine too busy to say yes to any more fucking Wonder Woman sequels. Oh, and you know, I joked about Justice to smith and typecasting, but you know, he gets that in the first place because he's got unique presence and they want to use it, and honestly, he's very endearing here. Look, I have no idea if this is what Dungeons & Dragons fans actually want out of a movie, but as a high fantasy deal with some jokes and good set pieces, it gets the job done, and look, everything including this has borrowed Guardians of the Galaxy's template because it works in the first place, and it works here. 7 out of 10, I was digging it, I think you will too.